Thank you all for sitting with me tonight. I want to start with you, Nicole, and ask you to share a little bit about how this project got started, and a little bit about all of the different pieces that came together to make this happen. I know that you have been working on Latino history in Indiana and in Indianapolis for a long time, tirelessly. So tell me.
I am very tired. Thank you. In 2019, I was introduced to the Espinoza family, Connie and her siblings, and I conducted their audio recorded oral history, and I knew about El Nopal Mexican Market. And so I sat down with them and then just tried to do some research in our own collection with those oral histories from 1990. I realized that there was a neighborhood here. And so I quickly, wrote down some notes, and as you know, March of 2020 is when the blog came out. And so unfortunately that was during COVID. So I grabbed my scribbled notes, and I didn't realize until we started working on this documentary that it was Justin Quintana Sr. who called this a Barrio. I thought I had made it up, but it was actually Jesse. And so, Connie had started that secret Facebook page. I am a non-resident on that page, and realized there were so many more people here and more stories to tell. And we, Connie, Maria, and Ray and I formed like this ad hoc committee because we wanted to get a mural done. It was the Arts Council had funds for the Bicentennial Legends mural series, and we met over Zoom for, months, and the mural was not realized. Lo and behold, till later, Feliciano Espinoza is on the top of the Bicentennial Unity Legends. I'm gonna mess up the name, but it's a mural that is right outside of Gainbridge Fieldhouse. So that's so I've known these folks for a while, and so that's how we really started to get to know each other. And they're quick to answer my texts about questions and providing more photos, and they've just all been really great.
Yeah, we love providing photos of ourselves.
They do love providing photos. So for the documentary alone, I think we had over 100 photos to select from, and in audio recording, I mean, folks really dug deep to find all of this great stuff and great content to help us tell the story of this neighborhood.
And so, we've, through this process, you all have gathered these photos, gathered these stories, and so this documentary will serve as testament to that, but so will the records that exist and have been gathered. So it's this multifaceted thing that has come together. It's really wonderful. Obviously, bringing all of this together, there is a lot of deep connection, a lot of community building that has to happen for something like this to come to fruition. Nicole and Grace, can you talk a little bit about what that process was like? How do you approach capturing the essence of a community on film?
I don't even know where to begin. It's something I've never done before. I'm only in college, and so this has been a great first experience to do something like this. A lot of projects in college are very interpersonal. You don't work with people out in the community. You work with other college students, and so this has been my first introduction to talking to other real people. It's crazy. And so I just wanted to thank all the interviewees for letting me tell your story. It's been a lot of fun. Nicole has been a lot of help. It was overwhelming, I'm not gonna lie. We did this in 6 months, I think is what we said. Not technically 8 months, but it felt like 6 months. It was super expedited, and we pulled it off, and I'm super honored, so thank you.
Anybody else want to say anything?
Do you want to say more? No. Okay. Grace, I'm going to go back to you and ask you a follow-up question. So putting all of this together as a student in video production, how has working on this significant piece of Hoosier history impacted you personally and professionally? Do you think, going forward, this is sort of, taking you in a different direction, made you think about things differently?
I don't even know. People ask me what I'm going to do after college, and I always say I don't know. But after doing this, I want to keep doing this. I remember I was emailing between Bethany and Nicole, and I said, I think I want to be a documentarian. We have that in text somewhere. So if that happens, send me a screenshot. But I think this is something I want to pursue. I love being a storyteller, and that is exactly what this has helped me do. So, yeah.
That's beautiful. I want to talk to our interviewees. I want to ask you all if you can share with me a specific memory, a collection of memories of your life in El Barrio. And I know when we were talking before in the green room, you guys had some great banter, sharing memories back and forth. If there's any of that, I'd love to hear it.
Well, we have to be on our best behavior here, though.
Oh, no. We're all friends, family here.
I think one of my most vivid memories is the barbecues and things we used to do, where the neighborhood would basically gather around. My dad threw a lot of those, and they'd have musicians there, and most of the time it was just kind of an impromptu thing, but it was a great way for the neighborhood to kind of come together, and we were all like family. You know, we do banter a lot, and we do kind of harass each other a little bit, and but
Yeah, to that point, we argue about whose father threw the most parties.
Yeah, that's true.
So the picture with the tent and the fence, again, we face Davidson. Again, we believe our house was party central in the neighborhood. So Dad threw a lot of parties in the front yard, and I always remember, again, the guys would dress up, wear their white shirts and their nice pants, and again, all the instruments would come out, and the singing and the drinking, and so again, incredible memories of the entertaining and all of the neighbors coming together.
Well, to go along with that, the birthday parties we had as children, you had the piñatas, everybody was there. It doesn't matter, your family was there, Connie, we just all celebrated each other's birthdays. And I don't think there's enough of that going around right now, but we still keep in touch with each other for birthdays.
Oh, that's awesome. I love, in the documentary and in some of our conversation, I know you all have talked about how, there was such a almost familial tie between the folks in El Barrio that, in the documentary, I think it was mentioned that, somebody in the neighborhood told you, you got to head home, you headed home. Tell me about that feeling, and if there's any specific memories that you have around that.
Well, it's, since we all grew up, we first started out in the apartment building. So there was 4 families in the apartment building. So I think that kind of made us all a family. And, my family had 4 kids. Your family had, Espinosa had, there was 4 or 5 at the time. And Quintana's, there was 4 or 5 there.
Yeah, I
too.
lost count.
So we lost count, you lose count.
Yeah.
But we're all,
Inside joke.
we all just went from one house to the other. And in the summertime, that was the easiest thing to do. Hey, where are you going? We're going to go over this way. And we'd end up at the Espinosa's or the Quintana's. We'd all end up playing around.
But every mother was everybody's mother. So again, they kept eyes on all of us, without question.
Yeah, and the other thing is, everybody's mother was everybody's mother.
Or godmother.
But we were godmothers. They were godmothers as well. They were baptismals there. My brother was baptized by your parents.
Yeah.
And your parents baptized one of my siblings as well. And, my parents baptized somebody else's siblings, and it's just, so we were all connected, and we were all basically a family.
And Ray was my mom's godson as well, as Ricky. Yeah.
So you guys mentioned a little bit, like some of the institutions, the apartment where you guys lived, there's a grocery store in the neighborhood. Can you talk about some of the landscape, paint a picture for us of the landscape of that neighborhood?
Well, I always think about and I tell these guys, and most of the folks here from the neighborhood hear me say this as well. Again, I'm younger than these two over here, by some, a bit. So my memory is the worst, but I always remember being with Connie's sister, Chacha, and going into the store, and taking a few candy bars, et cetera, and sneaking out. So those are some of my fond memories.
Okay. I think one of the things about the neighborhood was it was so diverse. Bob's Market, he was Jewish. We were, of course, Mexican. There was, I can't remember the name of the Irish family that was there. Pappas was Greek. And so there were, and there were the Maxwells who were black and African American. And we just had a very diverse neighborhood, and it was great growing up that way.
You know, at the time, we didn't know that we lived in a diverse neighborhood.
It felt like home.
It was just all of us kids. We just grew up together, and it's just the way it was. And it wasn't until the highway came through that we found out that that's not the way the real world is.
Yeah, we didn't really understand what racism was until after we moved, and I always share the story about how we moved over onto the Near East Side off of, if you're familiar with the John Bonner Center, we were off of 10th and Hamilton. And they actually put together a petition to keep us out of the neighborhood when we came. And so again, it wasn't until we moved into that neighborhood that I thought, well, what is going on here? Because people were just not social, and I was so used to being supported and in caring neighborhoods and where we all communicated and talked and, spent the night with each other, et cetera. And in this neighborhood, again, being the only girl, I couldn't have friends over. People just kind of stayed away. And that part of it might have been that I had 7 good-looking brothers, and they didn't want their daughters coming to my house. But I started hearing the comments, and, the comments of there goes the neighborhood, et cetera. And that was really the start of the flight to the suburbs, when you think about the mid-'60s on the Near East Side.
Now, even though we didn't see the racism when we were younger, our parents did. I remember my dad saying that when he moved here originally in 1950, he was on the west side. They were working out there, and they had signs out there that would say, "No dogs and no Mexicans." And he remembered that very vividly. So, but later we were, I guess, a bit sheltered from that as we were younger. And it wasn't until, like Milena said, it was until we got older that we realized that, it was out there, and we just didn't know it.
And it was that experience of moving out of the neighborhood. You guys had this multicultural
Culture shock.
community of welcoming that once that was gone.
But we moved close to each other.
You stayed close to.
Yeah, we all stayed
Yeah.
within probably a few miles
Yeah.
of each other.
Yeah.
And it wasn't by design, it just happened that way.
Yeah. And you guys stayed together and you celebrate each other's birthdays. This is wonderful. I want to ask a question about sort of the role of the community in helping to shape the city. What do you want people, or what do you hope people understand about the legacy of El Barrio?
That's a good question.
I know, that's a
And
that's a heavy-
we've thought about that, and I'm not sure I have an
Well,
answer.
I think, again, and we did talk a little bit about this, again, it's so unfortunate that, again, our parents are no longer living. And I'm so thankful to institutions like this that we're able to capture oral histories from our parents. And so there's a lot, Charles Guthrie did a book a number of years ago, and he was able to capture a lot of their history. But it's really unfortunate because they were the trailblazers when you look at our parents. But I think from my perspective, when I look at us and I look at our families and I look at, I was the only female banker here in the city for so many years, and I'd go into the boardrooms, and I dealt with all white men for the most part. And when I left my career at J.P. Morgan Chase after 35 years, I remember just thinking how depressed I was because I would look in the commercial bank and there were no Latinos when I left in 2015. And I look today at folks like Juan Gonzales and Rafael Sanchez, and they're running banks here in the city, and that makes me very proud. But, I have a brother that was a teacher, restaurateurs, entertainers, so I think about that legacy, and I think that is something we definitely brought to the city.
I agree. I think, I know I have 4 of my 5 grandchildren here and my daughter, and I want them to realize, what sacrifices were made so that they can lead the lives that they lead now. We just, I think our parents gave us that legacy, and we'd like for them to keep carrying that on.
In the military aspect, you can speak to that, Ray, when you think about all of our families and, the Marines, the Navy, the Army representation.
Yeah.
And yourself, were you in Navy, Ray? Yeah.
Ray was Navy, I was Air Force, Marine Corps.
Yeah. Marine Corps.
Bailing out on us.
Don't let them know.
But I think part of the legacy also is our parents taught us how to have open arms for each other. When they did the dances at the Christmas House, everybody came. Everybody came, and everybody was welcome. And it just made a world of difference that we knew, and we probably didn't know at the time, that there was a lot more Latinos out there than we thought. Growing up, even just, I talk to someone every once in a while, they're like, oh, how was it like when you were growing up? So you know what? I can count the number of families, not on one hand, but there's probably maybe 1,000 Hispanics when we were growing up. I mean, there was no Mexican grocery stores. There was no one Mexican restaurant. No newspapers in Spanish. It goes on and how things have changed and how everybody's gotten in the spirit of trying to expose everyone to our culture.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I think is wonderful about this documentary is it acknowledges and helps more folks understand that long history, that there is an incredibly long history of Latinos in Indianapolis and in Indiana. And while the community has grown so dramatically, and to your point, visibility has grown, it still has this long, long history. And this documentary is this wonderful part of telling that piece of the story and helping folks who may not have been, or their family may not have been in Indianapolis as long, to know that legacy of Latinos.
Well, it's grown in the blink of an eye. For us, it's grown in the blink of an eye exponentially.
Yeah.
It really has. And Nicole, how many Hispanos are in
God, don't
Indianapolis
ask me
right
that, Ray. Just got back from being out of office all week. But what I really want to say is that my work, here in Indianapolis and throughout the state, the purpose of, and all of my blogs, so I do my work where it's publicly accessible. It's not behind a paywall. And so you can Google my name and find all of my blogs to learn about Latino and Asian history here in the state. But I'm giving a vocabulary to people so they can understand what certain things mean in terms of the timeline of history and the contributions and the culture, the diverse culture of Latinos in Indianapolis. So.
This is a great story. So my next question, I was going to talk to you all about how you think the story of El Barrio fits into the larger history of immigrants and the Latino community. In the U.S., in Indiana, why is it important that this particular history is remembered and shared?
Does anybody else?
That's kind of two parts.
One of the reasons that I think it's important, and we really appreciate the Historical Society and Nicole and you and everyone who's worked on this, but we will, histories are being erased. And it's important now that things like this, these documentaries come out and kind of focus on the cultures that were out there. And we have to keep remembering that they are out there. And don't let them be erased. And that's really my biggest concern.
Thank you.
You know, Ray made a comment about, our voices and that, we were silent. We had, I can't remember how you phrased it, but we're not heard. And I think that when I think about the legacy here and what happened to us in the 60s and the fact that most of us were not homeowners. We rented. We had no voice. We didn't have the ability to really fight for our neighborhood and retaining the neighborhood. And it was, so unfortunate that happened. And again, from what Nicole said, the fact that the neighborhood was so small, we didn't have Father Boniface Hardin or that type of coalition of people to, help us. So again, I think it's important for us to remember that, and it's important, being a banker in the day, I didn't do mortgages, but I think about access to capital for folks and making sure that we give people the ability to be homeowners, I think is incredibly important.
So I want to kind of follow up on that and ask a question about, looking at this story, looking at this documentary. What do you think folks can learn about where we can go forward in terms of urban development and decision-making around civic development and infrastructure?
I think, and again, I have to be careful. Go there. But again, I love seeing the engagement of the Gen Z and probably millennials as well. Again, protesting, getting involved in what's going on in today's environment. I think that, again, we had, and more so my brothers, I think about the 60s because I was, in 65, I was, 8 years old in 65, but there was so much turmoil in the day, and people got up, protested, spoke, and tried to make a difference. And I think we are seeing more and more of that here recently over the past year. And I think I would continue to encourage our young people to get engaged and try to make a difference.
When I got started to doing this type of community work, I actually had a start in community development, working with the residents that surround the Children's Museum. The Children's Museum was a convener, and so that's when I really got a taste for neighborhood engagement in terms of telling your own story, preserving your own story, preserving your community. And so I carried those skills with me when I started this job. And really, this whole project is great because it was really a group effort. Like, Ray provided the professional photography and aerial photography with his drone. Connie and Milena were really great at, providing context to help me understand, like, who was who, and just the great significance of this neighborhood and how, things that I couldn't find through, census records, newspapers, or just what was publicly available to me. And so that's how I focus on my work. And so this was really, a true community effort.
Well, we made it a little difficult for you because...
Yeah, no, I'm just kidding, no.
Well, we made it difficult.
Especially Ray, no, just kidding.
From the standpoint that we all know each other by nicknames, and we tell you,
yes,
like, well, who's
yes.
who? So, well, I don't know who that is.
People and their nicknames and their legal names, and so it just got to be like there's Little Chano and there's Big Cello, Cha-Cha, who's Isabel Milena, which is also Maria.
Maria Magdalena, so Magdalena.
So there was Little Cello, Big. She's Little Cello, and then there's Big Cello, and so and there's Cha-Cha, and then who else? I can't remember all the names. Chano, and I'm like, and so she would give me names. I'm like, who are these people? And so, but they are all the same. But also, I have been working with these families for such a long time, and I've known them as adults. But now I look at their childhood photos. I'm like, oh, that's Graciano, that's for sure. That's Chano, and oh, that's Isabel, and so it was great. And so I would text Connie, and I said, "Is this?" And she's like, "Yep, you're right." So
Well, you know,
Yeah, and they were all, great, just a text away.
but the hardest one for us was Panchita.
Bajita, yeah, we could not find photos of her. And so her daughter is here in the audience. Dolores, are you here? Yay, I can't see it. There you go. Hi, Dolores. And so, Panchita was a neighborhood patriarch. And then also the Teresa Morales photos, that was a very last-minute addition. Because this woman had emailed me those photos, and she's like, no, after the first or second Los Barrio blog came out, she said, no, we were the first family. And I said, okay, where did you live? Tell me about your family. And she never responded to me. And I had this email saved for years, and so I had somebody who had a way to find out cell phone numbers and email addresses, and I stalked this woman. And so professionally, respectfully stalked this woman. Oh, God, okay, he's not in the room, okay. Anyway, and I said, I called her at work, and I said, hey, I'm not a crazy lady. I'm working on this documentary. I have to include your great-grandfather in this documentary. And so she agreed, and the family has long left the area. But they lived just beyond the Barrio. They lived just on Harrison Street in the Fletcher Place neighborhood. And they also started out on the west side as well. And so I'm just seeing all these patterns, and, there's so much more to discover. So, by hook or crook, we were able to get this done.
And we didn't even touch on the fact that when you think about the families, like we were all talking about, my mom was from Mercedes. Rey Riojas was from Mercedes as well. Westlaco, in the valley. And so many of the families all came from the Rio Grande Valley, which is interesting.
And Francisca's father probably drove them all here. Francisca, are you here?
Could have.
Mr. Salas.
Mr. Salas, yeah. And so that was just really great. So, I always have like 1,000 mental tabs open and lots of unfinished research. And so it was really great to be able to build a fuller story about what happened before them and other threads of just, this is kind of like, oh my God, every day. Like, do I have to include this in the documentary? How much time do we have, Grace? How many months do we have left to work on this? So there's a lot on the cutting room floor, but yeah.
Yeah, and if I can just add, there's one more family that we don't talk about because they weren't in the neighborhood, but I need to, and that is the Tom Morales family. So Tom Morales, many people in the audience may know Seth Morales. Again, they created the Morales Group, incredible business, and his parents were one of my brother's godparents, but they were up on off of Shaylin and it was Hillsdale Nursery at the time. But again, they also came from Mercedes, Texas. Yeah.
Hillsdale Nursery.
Yeah. Hillsdale.
I love hearing the stories of the lengths that folks went to gather all of these histories. I wondered if you could talk about one of the challenges that had to be a part of this was navigating, putting together a story for a neighborhood that physically is not standing. Can you talk about some of the challenges of putting together a documentary, investigating the history of a community that has endured displacement in that way?
Well, just for context, everybody was a child when this happened. So this was truly a collaborative effort. They would give me photos, or I would ask questions, or things would pop up in my mind. And so I sent an email or text to any of these folks and folks in the audience, participants as well. And so they would, give me answers. And then it just slowly started to become clear, connecting the dots, right? And clear to me, like in terms of wider history of Indianapolis, and then how this neighborhood changed that and influenced other parts of Indianapolis. So there, in the second blog, Under the Expressway, Los Barrio Part 2, I go into the list more different places in Indianapolis that the neighborhood influenced as well, outside of what's mentioned in the documentary.
One of the things that helped also was family. People would give me documents, and I would say, hey, Nicole, can you use this, or have you seen this? And
I would say, yes, give it to me. Give it all to me.
And I had a group of pictures that I had no idea what they were. Yes.
Yeah, so again, like piecing together lost history, there was a farm worker organization group here in Indiana called AMIS, which is short for Associated Migrant Opportunity Service, Inc. And Connie had these photos, and she's like, I don't know who these people are. And so I just kept going through it and seeing logos, and then just like, blowing it up and looking at it. I'm like, Connie, these are AMIS photos. I've been looking for these for years. And so, and just pulling up other things. So again, 1,000 tabs open at all times, unfinished research. And so I was quickly able to make that connection. And I said, Connie, you have no idea what you have just done for me.
So save those photos and mark them on the back so you know what they are.
That's awesome. Grace, I want to direct a question to you. In working on this, working on the editing, was there a moment as you were putting things together that really sticks out to you, that you sort of recognized and things crystallized, or the community came into focus for you?
I don't know. I think, honestly, when I was done making the trailer, funnily enough, like it was just a 2-minute video. Not even that, it was 1:30. I finished it, and I don't know, I felt like I was there with these residents almost. I'm gonna go back, honestly, like pre-production, like just doing the interviews, seeing these people be vulnerable, like almost crying, it almost like flipped on my empathy chip. Not saying I don't have empathy, but I really honed into that, and it was awesome to just be there and for them to be vulnerable in front of someone that they don't even know and trusting me with their story. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Can I add that Grace is really sneaky? And so
I know where you're going.
I didn't know she had the camera on half the time, so she's got a real talent for that. I didn't mean you all. I would have cleaned my office had I knew that she was filming. And so she's a real stealthy, and I think that's a really great skill that you have developed.
Your office just makes it look like you work hard. That's it.
I've seen a lot messier offices, Nicole. You're good. I've heard that, an empty desk is like, an empty mind. So your mind is always going, right? All the tabs are open. I like it. So I want to circle back and ask a question about the feeling of being a part of this documentary. So all the panelists, I'd like to know your thoughts on this. What does it mean for you to carry this history forward? And how do you feel about being a living testament to this neighborhood? I know that's
Well, I feel like I represent my parents mainly because they're the ones that started all this. They taught us everything there was, and moving forward, we get to tell our children, that their legacy is us telling their story, and I think that's what's really important. My kids aren't here today, but they're excited for this, and they understand a little more of where we come from now and where we're going, and for them to be able to look back and say, hey, you know what, they really did something. Our community really did. You look around, and we helped more than one church become Spanish speaking. The restaurants that came by, all that stuff. That's our legacy, as we helped open the doors for everybody else to understand that Indianapolis is welcome arms. And I like that.
Basically, I feel the same way. This is a testament to our parents who, like my parents, my dad really didn't care whether or not we spoke Spanish, but my mother insisted on it. So we ended up speaking Spanish, and we've lost a lot of it now. But my mother insisted we learn to speak Spanish, and that helped keep that culture alive, and that keeps that culture. I unfortunately did not do that with my child or my grandchildren, but it is still alive. They hear when I play a lot of Mexican music. And so they hear that, and hopefully they'll carry that on. And in the future, when they hear that, and I'm gone, they'll remember me, and they'll remember my parents who started it for us.
Yeah, it's, well, and I never married, never had children, but again, the family is my mom had some 50, 55 grandchildren, great-grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren. When she passed at 90, her sister's still living in Mercedes, Texas. She just turned 101, which is fabulous. But I think that, as best I can, I try to, I'm the one that holds the Ancestry.com. Yeah, and so I'm always trying to add the names, but I do try to encourage the nieces and nephews and the great nieces and nephews, but it's different, obviously. We've lost, we're parentless, that history. It's really up to us to try to pass it on. And again, when you look at the diversity of our families now, the integration that's occurred with our children, the biracial marriages, et cetera, it's just different. It's not what we remember. It's not how we were raised. And so I think it's really important for us, and again, thank you to Nicole for doing this documentary to try to preserve the history that we had growing up. And hopefully our younger children will grab onto that and try to maintain it and remember it. And we certainly try to pass on as much as we possibly can.
I hope that people feel empowered to know that their history matters to us, not just to the Indiana Historical Society, but to everybody in Indianapolis, and then to help give them a vocabulary, so to speak, to understand their own culture and contributions to Indianapolis. Again, talking about how the Latino community had a consulate here in 1907. Not even the Mexican consulate themselves knew that history until I uncovered it. And not even initially the Benjamin Harrison presidential site, they didn't have too much info on that. And so I feel like that I'm always trying to paint a bigger picture with scraps, sort of, so to speak. But again, doing this work, this will be on YouTube tomorrow, starting at 10 a.m. I encourage you to go look at it. There's my favorite part, which was at the end. I got cut off. It's great. Look at it, rewatch it. Sorry for waving my hands like a crazy lady up here. I was so excited for it. But anyway, just to be able to, again, public and accessible history. And so again, it's out there. People can discover it, and just to know that there were Latinos here in Indianapolis for over 100 years.
So we are about out of time, but I want to ask one final question, and that is that I have directed a number of questions to you all tonight, but I imagine there are things that maybe you all wanted to share, or experiences that were part of this that we haven't talked about. So if there are any things that you want to share with the audience tonight that we haven't had a chance to, I just want to offer that a moment for that opportunity.
Well, I do want to clear up one thing. I was thinking of my brother and sister who were in the Air Force when I said that earlier. I was Marine Corps, so I do want to clear that up.
That's fair.
One thing we haven't talked about, but we talk about it quite a bit, is we're sick and tired of seeing each other at funerals. So we want to create opportunities in the future for all of us to try to reconnect. Whether that be at some park, whether it's Broad Ripple, who knows where, but we need to try to stay connected. And Facebook has been incredible for that, and the page that you created. But when we're constantly going to funerals, we're like, oh, it's our opportunity to catch up, but it's also like, wait a minute. We need to spend more quality time together.
We do, and I think we talked about that. We're gonna do that sometime this summer.
Yeah.
Get together and just have a big old-fashioned cookout again.
There you go. You can
Yeah.
come video that if you want.
I'm invited.
Or maybe not.
Your secrets are all safe with me. There was a lot on the editing room floor.
Like what, Nicole? No, I'm just kidding. Well, we'll conclude, and I want to say I started by recognizing that all of you on stage here are torch keepers and truth tellers. I want to thank you for doing that work. It's really incredible. Can we get one more round of applause for our panelists?